You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week, as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Podbase, Speaker, and more. And don't forget, we are also streamed with our partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and let me bring in the rest of the team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am doing great. And of course, we never do this show without the third member of this trio, and that's who?
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 It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
I gave you a tiny bit of joking grief last week, and you ham it up this week. Fantastic.
I just think in fact we've never done the show without you. I'm sorry. I thought we were just stating facts.
Okay.
My bad.
I'm willing to go with these facts. I'm amused. That's all. Thank you. It's great to be here, as always.
Thank you for carving out some time out of your busy schedule to be with us, Brendan.
Oh. Always time to be here.
Oh, yes.
It's my destination.
Yes. Well, and we like to thank all of our listeners on the show, and those who listen. I just want to give a special shout out. This was great news for me to find out that our interview with Danny Limelight, which was released last week, has been making the rounds. Those guys at Cultaholic got word of it and got some great quotes as far as Danny's inspiration of going to MLW. So that was a very cool thing to see for myself as being a fan of Cultaholic and their work, to know that somebody over there listened to, our little podcast, at least the interview with Danny. So, and we've definitely been seeing, some great responses to the interview. So a just big thank you to all of those who have listened, who have shared our interviews, who have shared, our episodes. It is just great always to know, that there's people out there listening to the show, learning about Lucha Libre, learning about, the amazing talent out there in pro wrestling. And don't you worry, we'll keep on doing it for you each and every week. And so with that, we're going to kick it off with the way that we kick off every show. And that is the road back to shows with Brendan.
Heck yeah. So I'm just going to gloss over this real quick. Mexico is still just doing Mexico things. Their CMLL is still having the normal amount of fans they've been having in this post-pandemic era. AAA is still moving forward with fans, shows, but, IWRG, all that fun stuff. So we're going to move on to upcoming news news about upcoming matches and other things that might be happening. I'm start with some announcements here. Defy Wrestling announced that La Rebellion is going to be at their show Hellbent, in Los Angeles, the Lodge Room in Highland Park on 10/14. So, that's the show we kind of talked a little bit about with Viva Van, so now we're getting a little more lucha flavor on it, and I'm super jealous that it's in LA, and I'm probably not going to be able to go there twice this month. Dusty pointed this one out to me, so Dusty, you get the fan submission credit. IWRG is running a fan books the show contest for their 10/17 show. Basically, they show you the pool of luchadors that are available. You book the entire show. If they like your version of it, you win a year free admission to shows at the arena, and then they'll actually run the card. The problem is that by the time you're hearing this, the contest will be over, but it's still very interesting. That will definitely be a card that we will feature on the Indie Roundup, just because it's guaranteed to be different and interesting and something that we'll pay attention to. I doubt I'll win because I don't think I submitted on time, but, I'm going to try. I did try. So and then we have a few other bigger matches that are being announced inside the United States. AAW has a show that's going to air on Fight TV. It's going to feature Gringo Loco and Aries versus Laredo Kid and Aramis. Also on the card are Christy James and Thunder Rosa. So, I mean, you're off to a good start for good content. Galley has started their Galley Mania hype. It's going to be this weekend in Cicero Stadium. So there's going to be Aerostar and Drago against El Traidor and Golden Star, Atomico Jr., Cody Jones versus Arrowboy, Aramis and Aries versus Golden Dragon and Gringo Loco for the Galley tag. Hijo de LA Park and LA Park Jr. against Laredo Kid and Mecha Wolf, and Mil Muertes against LA Park, and somewhere in there also Emperador Azteca. So, I mean, this is a loaded lucha card. And this is Galley in Chicago. So, like, perfect time to see it. They also tend to put everything up on IWTV within a month. So if you can't get to Chicago on Sunday, you will have lots of chances to watch this.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Wrestling with Unicorns.
Yeah.
Carrillo, who goes, I believe he records that show quite often and, has lots of clips that are usually up for Galley. And so if you aren't able to do any of those options, make sure you are following Wrestling with Unicorns on social media, because he has a lot of, really cool clips. It's Wrestling with Unicorns.
Absolutely.
And they're all
the free option.
Yes, that's the free option. But that's how I discovered Galley, was from Wrestling with Unicorns.
Yeah, and it's high quality. They get good seats and usually put up really good high quality stuff. So you can get up to the minute results from them as well, and we'll just keep Thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad someone remembered ahead of time, because I always remember day of the event, like, oh yeah, I'll just go check out Wrestling with Unicorns.
Yeah, as you were telling all the options to view, it just reminded me how much of a cheapskate I am many times. But also that's how I found out about Galley, and when those clips come up, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's, after the fact, but, I think too, Galley is a great promotion that definitely, doesn't get a lot of visibility, or at least, traction compared to some of the others. I know Chicago's a very competitive, wrestling market, but it is one of those few really lucha libre, focused promotions out in the Midwest to East Coast, which is, fairly rare. So I just like to give that shout out to Galley.
Yeah, they're really kind of, the only lucha oasis in the middle of the country. Yep. Also going on right now, Mass Lucha is showing their first round of the Supremo tournament. And so their first round pairings, are Laredo Kid and Emperador Azteca, Bandito and Jesse Ventura, Rayman and Cuatrero, and Villano 3, and Sangre Azteca. I don't know why that particular word slowed me up, but that's going on in my other window right now. It's very exciting and very distracting, so I'm trying to not watch it while I'm talking. And then also this weekend, we're going to have Big Lucha Libre hosting the Lucha Indie Fest in Ecatepec. Now, Big Lucha Libre, as we know, is Bandito's promotion that he runs out of his gym, mostly, except for this is going to be in Ecatepec. So, footage, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get footage or we're going to get results, but they're promoting it on social media, so I'm expecting we will get something. So hopefully I'll have stuff for you on that next week. And then we had a fun one that was kind of in the same vein as the Sin Cara thing we've had before. There are, as we've mentioned a few times on the show, multiple people using the Mysterioso mask. And this became a story this week. Cubs fan reported it first and brought it to my attention. That there was a story out of Torreon over an Arena Coliseo booking where they booked the LA Mysterioso, the one that appears in PWR we were talking about for them. He's also on New Japan and several other California-based promotions. And there is one that has been wrestling out of the area in Mexico for a while, so the fans were upset and accusing the building of bringing in a cloned Mysterioso. So the promotion responded. I did enjoy that this is an all caps version, so I don't know if they're actually yelling at me or if they just really didn't think about what that looks like to us. So this is a direct Google translation. I do apologize. There's some very clearly not right words in here, but I wanted to do the best I could to bring their actual words forward. Here we go. There was a little discussion about the next participation of the Mysterious in New Japan USA, but we want to clarify that this is not a clone and that the King himself recognizes it because they have worked together, and we want to be with us for a long time. So that basically right there they're saying, so that they do not let them be fooled or taken by bad comments. We are 100% responsible company that does not provide for any situation outside the laws. It goes on like this. They're basically saying they checked with the commission, they checked with Mysterioso, and they've checked with they've talked with the wrestlers themselves. So the long and the short of it seems to be the original Mysterioso authorized a number of people to use the mask and name for whatever reasons. The rumor is that it's for money, which, in Lucha that seems the most plausible. But pretty much the people running around with the Mysterioso, the majority of the people running around with the Mysterioso mask are probably went to school under him at some point and are using the identity. We here at the Lucha Central podcast have mostly been talking about the California-based one. This is the first time I've brought up the Ecatepec one. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of an interesting thing that there do exist multiple Mysterioso, and much like Sin Cara, they all kind of have a claim to being, Mystices would be a better version of that story. Much like Mystices, they have all kind of have a claim to the name. So there you go. Yeah, or Rey Mysterio Sr. I frequently get stories when about Rey Mysterio doing this or that, and I'll always smile and nod and say I didn't know that, and then I'll go and fact check it later and find out that there is yet another Rey Mysterio that is doing something interesting. So that was my road back to shows. I only have a couple things for the indie roundup this time. PWG had 3 Mendes this last weekend on Sunday, and they had a few Lucha related matches there. They had, so this is just barely Lucha adjacent, but it's my warm-up here. Evil Uno against Tony Deppen. Evil Uno came out on top on that. Then you had Dragon Lee against Aramis. Dragon Lee came out on top on that one. And then Alex Shelley and Jonathan Gresham were in a number one contenders match. Now this will be interesting later because of news in ROH as well. But Alex Shelley won this one. Spoiler alert, Jonathan Gresham is in the mix for the World Heavyweight Championship in ROH. More on that later. But Alex Shelley is the number one contender for the PWG Heavyweight Championship. And then you had Brody King and Malachi Black in a tag team match against Black Taurus and Flamita. And I can't find footage of this yet, and this makes me sad. I feel my life is a little bit emptier by not being able to see. This sounds amazing. So if you got footage of that tag team match out there, send it to me. I won't mind watching this like 5 or 6 times, so don't worry if somebody else might have sent it to me first. Please send it off. And then last week, we got so excited about other things, and I didn't quite have results ready yet, but Defy also performed last week, 9/25. They had a couple of lucha matches for us. The Cook brothers were in tag team action against Guillermo Rosas and Leon Negro. The Cook brothers did come out on top on this one, but I am fairly certain that somebody ate a cowbell and had Leo Negro dance on them. So these are all good things. If you have not seen these two luchadors in action, they're not normally a tag team, but they both are they have unique spins on the lucha style, which is fantastic. And then Donica Della Rouge and Rebel Kell, who have been building up to a fight, had a street fight that was not a street fight because it ended in a no contest. So I don't know what happened there, but all the more reason I need to go see the next one so I can get you guys more story on this. But there we go. That was my indie roundup. As always, I'm going to ask for, results anytime. I'll even come swing back around because I finally got my results from Defy. A week later than I would have done it if I'd been able to go. So thank you for getting me the results, and I will continue to cover anything you guys submit for me in one form or another.
Thank you, Brendan, for the Road Back to Shows and the Indie Roundup. Up next, well, you know what time it is. We're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
And that was Denise Salcedo bringing us this week's Lucha Central Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, it was a big week in the WWE. I don't know if you guys heard, but there was like a draft happening. And no, I'm not talking about what happens when the wind comes in, through the door. It is the 2021 WWE Draft. And we had some interesting movements between rosters that we'll get into. So go ahead, Dusty, and take it away.
Yeah, we'll save the draft for the second part. We'll cover some matches real quick. That way we can get into discussion about it. On Raw, Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo defeated Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. Angel got the pin on Ali again in a 1 minute and 45-second match, and I really loved the intensity of these two guys. Angel and Humberto, they're cousins. They work well together. They're like a couple of assassins in the ring, like sharks circling the prey. And they just move right through it. And we'll get into the draft in a minute. Part of my notes really refer to that. But great stuff. I'm excited for what's coming for them. And then on main event this week, Karrion Kross defeated Ricochet. And this was easily the best match that the two of them have ever had together. And I really liked the development and the psychology of this match. Last time Ricochet lost because of a quick and sudden powerbomb. So this time he'd gotten smart to the powerbomb. He was looking out for it. He was ready to counter it. Little details like that are what makes wrestling really exciting and makes it rewarding and just makes you feel more invested because you see the development. And we've seen this trilogy of matches between Karrion and Ricochet play out on main event. And as much as NXT is changing with the draft and everything, so too is main event. It's taped before Raw every week on Monday night, so we will be getting a shake-up in talent. We'll cover a couple of other things regarding some talent that's been on main event lately, but the changes in the future will be interesting. And now we get to the draft. So much went on with the draft. So first on SmackDown, they moved Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, drafted. They moved them to Raw. Zelina Vega was drafted to Raw. Then on Raw, Garza and Carrillo were drafted to SmackDown as a tag team. Lucha House Party was left out. We've got a lot of stuff to cover here. So first, we've got Garza and Carrillo. They were specifically drafted as a tag team, which is interesting and finally gives both of them some direction. I think Angel's ready-made for the singles matches, but tag team's better than nothing. They've been getting a lot of shine on Raw lately, which is nice. And the interesting thing is that not only were they drafted as a tag team, but SmackDown has like a really stacked tag team roster now. Like they got a lot of tag teams. So that's suddenly, very interesting. The women's division and on SmackDown became pretty stacked with the draft too. And we've seen really what made NXT popular, what made it shine, was it had a great tag division and a great women's division. And those were like the things that it had going for it. And all of a sudden that's kind of rolled over to SmackDown. AEW has a great tag division, not as great women's division, and I think that WWE may be kind of seeing the writing on the wall there and trying to adapt to what's making those programs popular, but on SmackDown, it gets the most eyes on it. It's easy to keep SmackDown as the #1 wrestling program in the world each week because of the broadcast availability on Fox. Just more eyes are able to be on it than on Dynamite, and I think WWE is absolutely petty enough to care about that kind of thing. And I do. I think they're trying to use these kind of touchstones from the AEW shows and the NXT shows, what was popular, to make SmackDown more popular, keep more eyes on the product. We'll see what happens, but I think that's what they're building towards. We also had Rey and Dominic going to Raw, and I'm hoping that this is really a good thing for Dominic. He could possibly thrive on Raw. There's new matchups, there's new things going on, different stuff going on with him there. He's been so repetitive on SmackDown. It was like they were in a holding pattern, this thing with Sami Zayn, but they weren't willing to let him have a win over Sami Zayn. The whole thing was just bizarre. And now that he's at least out of there, maybe they'll do something fresh with him. I believe that the Raw writers and the SmackDown writers don't intermingle, so maybe different writers will have a different feel. We'll see what happens. At least they're not treading water until the draft like they were with Sami Zayn.
I do have to point out that they've always had a wonderful team of writers for Raw and SmackDown, and then everything gets rewritten at the last minute by one or two people. So temper that optimism out there, people. It's always good to be optimistic and positive, but at the same time, that seems to be my expectation. So
absolutely. And to a large degree, those writers, even as great as they are, they're writing for an audience of one. Yes. Because Vince is the only person that matters, and he doesn't really like what we like, which is unfortunate.
No, he doesn't. Yeah. He is not a Lucha fan. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's not really a Lucha fan.
Well, and there was also some speculation about the networks wanting certain people on certain shows, so that, again, not confirmed, but if that is indeed the case, that also then played an influence on who landed on what shows. And I think that ultimately now you have to, change up your roster and your storylines to match up who you have as your champions, who your programs are with. One interesting note too about Rey and Dom moving to Raw is so did Seth Rollins. And so that was someone that they had a feud with previously, and at one point they all moved from Raw to SmackDown, and now they've all moved from SmackDown to Raw. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting, turnaround in, really how much things changed in just a year. I think it even been a little bit more than a year, but that, how much things change. Yeah. Also drafted to Raw's Carmella, so I'm not sure if we're going to see the team of Zelina and Carmella, continue, but I actually did like that team. And if you're not really going to have them as singles competitors win, really I think having them as contenders for the women's tag belts would be really interesing.
They broke up a lot of women's teams this time around.
All of them, except the champions. Tag teams got broken up except for the champions.
I hadn't confirmed that. I was going to ask you that question, Dusty, but there we go. But to Miranda's point there, that would put them and put these new teams in a perfect place to come up through the ranks. Miranda, you alluded to the rumors that we actually talked about on this show a couple of times. Fox, from a fairly credible source, Fox had it's been said that Fox wanted specific talent to focus on the West Coast. So I just want to, I feel like since we've talked about it on this show, we don't really need to allude to it. We might as well just be open. That is the rumors that we're kind of dealing with here. And they seem to want luchadors. So I'm supporting Fox wanting West Coast talent.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miranda. I think I derailed you. I apologize.
No. That was just me kind of throwing out some random thoughts about all of these moves. And I agree with Dusty as far as, talking about Angel and Humberto about, are they better or built for singles competition? Absolutely. But is this the train that they are going to have to ride on for a bit? Probably. And is that a good thing? Absolutely. Because then at least they get that TV time. At least we get to see them in action. Mm-hmm. At least we get to see them with wins. And, they could really build up to be some solid tag team contenders. Now, what happens afterwards with them, after they get their title shot and lose, cause again, you have the Usos as champions and that's not changing. What do you do in that case? That's when maybe, slowly we have the drift come. But the build up in the meantime is going to be great for them.
I mean, just on the Usos aren't losing to Humberto and Angel. They will lose at some point, but.
Well, at some point. To
but
somebody.
You're right.
Some team.
You're right. The momentum for Humberto and Angel is never going to be enough to penetrate that bloodline aura right now. So, but, and I'm going to say it out loud because we're hinting at it. The WWE likes to break up tag teams. They're the ones that actually kind of perfected it, and I'm going to go all the way back to the barbershop window. So, don't be surprised if somebody winds up with a rose shoved up their ass as the tag team disappears. Just saying. I had to go a long way to get to that gag. Sorry.
Yeah. Also, in interesting draft news, we had what honestly made much more news than if they had been drafted, but Lucha House Party were not drafted. And as you may recall, we previously reported that Gran Metalik had asked for his WWE release in September. He hadn't been seen at all since WWE TV since the episode of Main Event taped the night of September 13th. Lince Dorado similarly hadn't been seen on WWE TV since September 20th's Main Event. So, do you guys think this is a sign that they're going to be released? We've seen WWE trim the fat lately around every quarterly call.
Yeah, let's start with what show were they ostensibly supposed to be a part of before the draft?
Technically Raw, since they were appearing on Main Event. That's the Raw roster. Yeah.
So they would be, if they were to stay, they would be in the Raw Tag Team division, which is not very loaded right now. And also means they're not up against the Usos. So they have room to move higher. There's a glass ceiling that they don't have, that is much more breakable. So I don't know. Gran Metalik did ask for his release. It's publicly known, and that tends to mean even if you do stay, you don't do very well.
Right.
But at the same time, that could be a negotiating tactic to be a better team or better used on the program they're on.
Well, that's what I wonder. I mean, so going forward, if Metalik, he negotiates, if he becomes a single star, where does that leave Lince Dorado? I mean, I think Lince is a great singles wrestler. I think he's got the best shooting star press in all of WWE. But at the same time, we've become accustomed to him as a tag team guy. And it's been a long time since Metalik's been a singles guy. So
Well, yeah, you wonder as far as what would be a good storyline for him, would he chase after a title, would he just have a feud with someone? I think too what also creates this challenge is other content that is moving in different directions. So 205 Live is now becoming more of an arena similar to NXT, as far as more up and coming talent, newer talent. So that really just leaves, main event as, this additional area of programming and content, which is great because as far as the matches themselves, you actually have more time. But, at the same time, it does leave this gap of, where does that leave both of them as, big picture wise on the roster? And you could see, maybe a feud for, maybe, the United States Championship or Intercontinental, but that would definitely, really require, I think, something really deeply rooted story-wise, and both of them in general too, are very well liked and are fan favorites. But it's hard when I think, again, you have kind of similar in style, how do you then differentiate that in a singles role, or do you, or is this, kind of the demise of Lucha House Party that, was teased, back when Kalisto, was, in the group and that breakup happened, do we see that, or is it just more of a thing like the New Day where they never technically break up, but they do their own thing?
I would prefer that, like affiliated, but not necessarily a tag team. Like, Batman needs Superman. You gotta have a buddy that you can call on to help back you up when things are tough, and they could be that role for each other. And they have that same superhero feel with the masks and the gear, and the moves, like Grand Metalik, like the things he can do are just mind-blowing, and I feel like there's so much they could do together without necessarily being a tag team that it would be a shame to separate them right now if they stay within WWE. But if they leave WWE, I don't know if they remain a tag team or not. I think it would benefit Lindsay a little more than it would Grand Metalik. Mascara Dorada is still a known name, especially in Mexico.
But I think with Lindsay, he was a rising star and got to the level of getting to the Cruiserweight tournament.
Absolutely. He was one of the most exciting singles wrestlers in the tournament.
So if we kind of even play devil's advocate and think about, other promotions with, a strong lucha presence and also a place where he can really reinvent himself, Ring of Honor, MLW, even Impact are places where we've seen people from WWE come, and I'd say primarily MLW and Impact, and be able to reinvent themselves. And I think Lindsay definitely has the adaptability to be whoever he wants to be, whether it's this current iteration of him or a new one. And if anything, that gets me very excited to see what the future holds for Lindsay, because I think in some ways, you only have so many parameters in WWE to grow and change, in the sense of changing your character, changing your, who you are. But when you leave that system and you go off on your own, the world is your oyster when it comes to who do you want to be and how do you want to present yourself with that. And I think, at least to Lindsay's advantage, he definitely is, more in tune with the younger audience, with more pop culture, more creativity, and I think that would be very cool to see. In all his gear that he makes, in his moveset, in the way that he talks, he's very much a modern luchador, and I do think that would lend him well wherever he goes, but especially in the WWE, if he did stay, he really is a perfect hybrid of entertainer and luchador.
He absolutely is. And if it's outside of WWE, he had an amazing, you mentioned his gear, he had an amazing Twitch channel and presence on Twitch. He would make his gear on there, he'd play games, he'd chat with fans. Like, he has a built-in audience ready to follow Lindsay. Like, they are ready. And
I thought that was the biggest loss with the recent round of rules and regulations. Like, as much as Alina's channel was great, I thought Lindsay really lost out on a market with the clamping down on social media they did, and that would mean that he would have a lot more to gain by leaving as well. They haven't publicly said he's leaving, but the two tend to be good friends and move together. So, we'll see.
It'll be interesting. For news on the draft, for news on SmackDown, Raw, and anything else that comes up with Lucha House Party, be sure to check out luchacentral.com, your place for all things Lucha Libre.
Dusty, you ain't done yet. You ain't done, because you still have a whole week's worth of AEW content as well. And boy, was it a week.
Oh, big week. Yes. First up on Friday Night Rampage, Jade Cargill, defeated Nyla Rose and Thunder Rosa in a triple threat match. Rosa's still undefeated in singles matches, but I really hated seeing her lose her undefeated streak here. I felt like this was a really rare misstep for her in AEW, because this just felt like another match. It didn't feel like her loss meant anything, or it didn't feel like it felt important. It didn't make me feel like Jade was much more of a threat than she already was. I wasn't a fan. I'm a big Nyla Rose fan, but at the same time, I still think that Nyla Rose should have taken the pin in the match instead of Thunder Rosa. It just wasn't for me, especially after all they've done to build up Thunder Rosa. It felt off. It felt like all the hope and possibility that we were on the cusp of was just kind of dashed a little with this match, or delayed a little with this match. It's not the end for her or her positive run or anything in AEW, but it's just incredibly frustrating when you've had such a long-term investment in her like we have, and we see her incredible win streak, and it just kind of means nothing. And I have a counter argument, because my first reaction to this was, I can't wait to see how she bounces back from this.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
I didn't want to derail your thought, but that was my first reaction when I saw this loss, and that it was Thunder Rosa that took it. So, sorry, keep going. I just wanted to throw that perspective out there.
Yeah, and my other theory on this was, we've seen Rosa be almost unbeatable in AEW. Like, she racks up the wins everywhere. I believe she's only had one or two losses. I believe just one, but it might be two. But when back in they're obviously building towards the TBS title for the women.
Yeah.
And back in the Attitude Era in WWF, it was kind of set up where The Rock couldn't beat Stone Cold Steve Austin, but Mankind could. And The Rock could beat Mankind, and Stone Cold could beat The Rock. And this way, there was always somebody that could challenge the top person, even if the average person wasn't a threat. And if they're building to something like that, I'm excited there, because Britt Baker, I feel, would be the other person in that trio right now for AEW. And I get the Fight Forever vibes, like the Stone Cold Mankind, just like I mentioned, or Undertaker Mankind. I get those vibes from Rosa, Britt Baker. Like, I just want to see them be long-term foils for each other. So I'm hoping that's kind of what it's building towards. It'll be interesting. Like Brendan said, sometimes Thunder Rosa's best work comes after a loss like this. We've seen it happen before. It'll be interesting to see how she kind of gets that mystique back about her after the loss too. There's a lot to gain there. Also on Rampage, we had Jack Evans versus Orange Cassidy in a hair versus hair Apuestas match on national TV.
Yes!
Like, so cool. It felt like a foregone conclusion that Cassidy was winning the match. He obviously has the strongest momentum and the least hair to lose, but the fun was all in how we were going to get there, like how he was going to win. It's also, I really enjoyed seeing Orange Cassidy a little lower on the card. I enjoy his work and I enjoy his gimmick, but I feel like his work is best in small doses and against people a little lower on the card. It's just more believable and entertaining to me as like a fan. As a main event talent, I feel like he wears thin. I wasn't a big fan of the Mimosa match that he had with Chris Jericho, but smaller, more focused doses like this, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And, he really shined. Jack Evans was great in this match. He's a treasure. I hope we get to see more of him and his new haircut in the future. He's finally regaining some of that momentum and some of that focus that he lost after that match with Kenny Omega. He got blown up and he kind of blew the match. And, he's finally, like, TH2 have really been strong. He's tied up with Matt Hardy in the Hardy family office now, getting kind of, good optics. And he's been doing amazing work. TH2's been doing amazing work. He's been improving every week. And he's kind of back to being the Jack Evans we all know and love. Like, it took a while to get there, but we're back. The Orange Punch got Cassidy the pin on Evans and 9 minutes and 5 seconds, which interestingly enough was the exact same time to the second of the women's triple threat match in the show. I don't know if that's their sweet spot, is like 9 minutes and 5 seconds on Rampage, but there you go. Later, we had Dark Elevation on Monday. Santana and Ortiz defeated Kodama and Oberion in a 1 minute and 48 second squash, which saw Proud and Powerful using the double team flipping facebuster to get the pin. Proud and Powerful are currently unranked, but they're getting the wins. We've seen this work for Thunder Rosa. We've seen it work for Shida. They're Dark Elevation. You quietly build up a lot of wins. It's easy to get 2-3 wins in a couple weeks on these two programs and then move up the rankings. And I would really like to see them challenge the Lucha Bros for the tag team titles. Mm-hmm. The AEW tag team titles, I should specify. We'll get to that here shortly. But I think that's what this is going towards. I think we're beginning to see the road to their climbing of the rankings and challenging for the titles. I'm all here for that. Yeah. And then on Wednesday night, we had Dynamite ladder match. The Andrade and his feud with Pac continues. Despite not winning, he and Pac showed obvious in-character tension, and their interactions were really the highlight of the match to me. The Joker that returned in the ladder match was a triumphantly returning Mr. Hangman Adam Page. He looked a little bit like a Las Vegas cowboy. He had on glittery, fringy western tights. He picked up the win and the chance to challenge Kenny Omega for the AEW Heavyweight Championship. But during the match, there were some rumors as of recording time that Andrade was injured. I'm not sure if it was in kayfabe. The last ladder bump in the match looked really nasty. There were instant welts on Andrade's back after the impact with the ladder. We didn't really see Andrade after that on the match, or after that in the match. After that, he went on Twitter and complained that Pac had hurt him and injured him on the program. He would be back, however. So we'll see what happens. Also, after Dynamite, at the Rampage tapings that will air on October the 8th, that's before our recording time. I haven't seen it yet, but the Lucha Bros had a tag team title match against the Acclaim that I understand was fantastic. I am very excited to see this match. We will be covering it next week. We'll have all that news for you. But also, we had a lot of discussion this week about Andrade. I mentioned we'd get to this, the tag titles. So, last week on Dynamite, he mentioned that he had a couple of friends that might want to challenge the Lucha Bros for the AAA tag titles. And, there were a lot of, speculations going on. This weekend is Heroes Immortales for AAA, and the Lucha Bros are in a tag title match against Los Jinetes del Aire, And we could see, that's Laredo Kid, Io Del Vikingo. I don't necessarily think we see the title change at Heroes Immortales now because of the talk on Dynamite. But I do think maybe we could see Laredo and Vikingo on Dynamite, or at least AEW programming, maybe Rampage. Cubs fan who does the luchablog.com, he had some ideas. His final feeling was that Andrade was friends with the Good Brothers and that they would be the challengers to the title. But also with Andrade, you can't ignore the Ingo Bernable thing. You know, could we see, you know, Dragon Lee? You know, who do we see? Does somebody else come from Ring of Honor?
That gets tricky. I just want to, since I've been looking a lot at that does get tricky because Ring of Honor has a TV deal as well.
Exactly.
So standard AEW contracts do not let you do two deals unless it's part of this Forbidden Door nonsense, which ROH, and I mean nonsense in the most affectionate way.
Yeah.
Which ROH is not actively participating in. So, I've been thinking about that too, but, it's a big ask, but it's not impossible.
And then my personal theory, my favorite theory right now, is we've seen some involvement from Conan with Andrade. So we've seen.
Well, you know, he's has to accompany somebody down the ring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've seen some MLW people show up.
True.
In AEW.
I think I see where you're going with this.
So what if we could get Danny Rivera /
There it is.
What if we get 5150? I mean, like, we've seen a history of Danny Limelight in AEW. He was obviously somebody AEW thought very highly of. He works their style. He knows their people. He understands what's going on. And if they wanted something fresh and exciting, they've given him enough time away from AEW to truly be a shock.
And if coming back at 5150 with a much different attitude than what we saw in
I mean, you heard him. He's looking for all the gold everywhere.
Yep.
Exactly. And he didn't hint at anything in particular.
Yeah.
But we've seen, like I said, we've seen Conan with Andrade. The challengers for the AAA titles. I feel like this is a perfect fit. It helps bridge so many of Conan's involvements and interest. It would make sense of things. I honestly think for a while they were building towards Ric Flair as the mouthpiece for Andrade, but it looks like that won't happen anytime soon. And so why not Conan? I mean, Conan can talk, and he's got such a cool look, and even at his age, he looks like he could kick your ass. Like, he's a tough dude. And, you know, to have somebody at ringside like that could throw a legitimate knockout punch, I mean, like, it's a very cool, that's my personal want. That's what I would like to see. I honestly don't know what's the most likely, but like I say, we've seen a lot where it could be 5150, and, you know, if it happens, you heard it here first. I would love for that to be how it goes. It should be who challenges for the AAA titles. That would be great. I feel like the Good Brothers at this point would be such a letdown. And I don't necessarily care who it is as long as it's lucha related. That's obviously my want. But also the AAA tag titles. Like, we need to...
There is a situation where I think the Good Brothers would be good, and that is if the Good Brothers went down to Mexico, because that puts international eyes on those AAA tag titles.
Yeah.
But if it's just going to be on a Rampage episode, or worse yet, an Impact episode, I mean, again, not bad on Impact, just that I can't find them on TV easily.
Right.
It doesn't do the intended thing. That's, you know, it would be a great match and I would hunt it down, but it's harder to get international eyes on a show like Impact at this moment.
there's just so much possible. That's kind of the secret of AEW in a way. There's so much that could go on, and you're like, this could happen, and everything you think of is exciting, and they'll find a way to get there that's at least as exciting as what you've thought of. But like we've mentioned, and I agree with Brendan. Unless it's Mexico, the Good Brothers don't make a whole lot of sense. Kenny and the Good Brothers in Mexico, and titles versus titles match to some degree, like that would be cool. If they could get maybe Vikingo challenges Kenny, and I don't know.
Ooh.
We'll figure something
now
out.
We're in fantasy booking.
Yeah,
we can go on that on fantasy booking all night long, though.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to discuss, lot to dream about, a lot of possibilities. But for all the AEW news, including Rampage, Dynamite, Dark Elevation, the Lucha Bros, what goes on with those tag titles, Andrade, and so much more, check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Well, we were just talking about this promotion and the possibilities. MLW had a big week. Of course, you had Fusion Alpha on Wednesday, but the big show Fightland happened on Thursday on Vice TV, and we had a very exclusive press conference with Court Bauer himself. So before we get into that, let's start at the beginning with Fusion Alpha. And weren't we just talking about these guys? LAX 5150.
We love them.
Right there. Just right there.
We're in a match against Injustice. And this has been actually brewing for quite some time, since LAX 5150 has come to MLW. And we'll use 5150 interchangeably with LAX. I feel like we still are getting some mixed messages as, how to exactly pronounce this faction name. So for short, we're just going to go with 5150. But I would consider it a new iteration of LAX if we're going to get technical over here. But we did have a tag match with Rivera and Slice Boogie. They were accompanied to the ring by Conan and Julius Smokes. Against Injustice's Myron Reed and Jordan Oliver. Now, a lot of this match, Rivera really made his presence known in this match with a lot back and forth with Jordan Oliver. And Myron Reed came out to help his partner a few times, but you had interference from Slice, and ultimately we had some interference from Julius Smokes, who ended up using, as we would later find out, a rock within his, sock, but it looked like a slapjack at one point, to hit Jordan Oliver over the head, and Rivera pinned him. After that, 5150 just went crazy. They attacked Injustice, they attacked referees, and ultimately ended up spray painting an L on the back of Jordan Oliver, in short for LAX. They also cut a promo later on in the night, pretty much just, stating the obvious, that they are here to win the gold. They're out here to prove a point. They want to capture Cesar Duran's attention, and they are going to stop at nothing. They're going to do this in a very ruthless manner. This was a truly aggressive match from both sides, but especially 5150. And I think this format that they're in MLW is perfect for the intentions that they have, and they could be real threats to the MLW tag team titles. We were talking with Rivera about that as far as, facing Los Parks at one point and how dangerous that can be. And sure enough, he was not intimidated in the least bit. So what we saw this week on Fusion Alpha just confirmed that him and Slice are certainly ready for the future. Also on Alpha Fusion, we had Matt Cross face Fatu for the MLW Heavyweight Championship. And this was a really good match. I mean, we haven't seen Matt Cross, at least on a televised ring, in quite some time. But this match started off the way that it would make sense, with Matt Cross really trying to use his speed to his advantage to really get that up and going. He had a big forearm, and a suicide dive at the beginning. However, that time outside of the ring, Fatu used to his advantage to take control, and he utilized his strength to beat up on Matt Cross. However, there was at one point where Fatu was about to send Matt Cross into the ring post, but Cross was able to push out of the way and have Fatu run into the ring post. And then Matt Cross did an awesome cartwheel off the top rope, but Fatu got to him with a drop kick. Now, commentary was really playing up as far as, how unpredictable the results of this match could be because of the way that these were set up. Alpha Fusion aired on Wednesday, with Fightland airing on Thursday, with the implications, that the next night was Fatu's big match with Hammerstone. But would that happen if he could get through Matt Cross? Fatu took control of most of the match afterwards, but Cross made a comeback with some big kicks and a really great springboard forearm. And then he also performed a standing moonsault, that had a very, very close near fall. And then, a short while afterward, Matt Cross did another suicide dive out, but in this time to Joseph Samael, who was really very active and vocal throughout the entire match. But ultimately, Fatu won with that jumping moonsault on Matt Cross to retain the MLW World Championship. So this was a great match. I thought that the fact that Matt Cross got this much of a high profile match, to, start off with his tenure in MLW was great. And I think he's someone too that, talk about fusion of styles. Matt Cross could literally wrestle any style, but you saw some of the hints of lucha libre in this match. I do want to jump into, I'm going to go maybe not out of order, but I guess some of the order of these things happening, Court Bauer did a press conference earlier this week. And with that, myself and Brendan were on that call, being able to listen to, Court's thoughts about MLW's growth, Fightland, of course, happening on Thursday on Vice TV, and even, anywhere from the talent on the MLW roster to the possibility of a full woman show happening. But I got the opportunity to ask Court about his relationship with AAA in Mexico, specifically referencing the AAA show, the show that happened in conjunction with AAA last year, right before the pandemic, and if MLW has any intentions of working with other promotions. We talked about that forbidden door in the future. Here is what Court Bauer's thoughts were on just that.
Those are some good questions. So, yeah, the last show we did before the shutdown was in Mexico, and it was the only show I actually missed because I was negotiating back here for our deal with the Zone. So it's the first and only show I really missed, and it was weird because I was directing it remotely. And the big concern was just, the NBA had just shut down that morning, and the world was changing rapidly, and we were just like really concerned about how things were playing out. And in talking with the local authorities in Tijuana, we felt, okay, we can pull this off. We thought at the time maybe we'll have to shut down for 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe then, after that we were thinking maybe 12 weeks, 18 weeks, and then the whole world changed. But we really enjoyed our shows in Mexico, and Tijuana was a really fun event for us. And I think we're definitely going to be doing another one. Whether we get it in this year or not, I don't know. We have plans. We have something penciled in that could happen in a Latin American country in December. But a lot of it hinges on, can we get in the country? What is the conditions of that country? And kind of, we have a short runway to make that decision now. We've been looking at it for a while, but like with anything with COVID, you're going to have to get really close and almost to that 1 yard line before you make the decision on it. If not, we're going to be doing definitely stuff in the future in 2022 in Mexico and other countries. Latin America, to me, in terms of my strategy, is the next big moment for the company, because strategically, that's where I have the advantage that's where I can tap into something. And I think I can counterpunch 2 billionaires by going into Latin America because I have a little bit more experience in that lane than they do from working in Mexico, working on projects stateside and seeing what meshed and what didn't. And, we really kind of stumbled onto something when we had our Spanish feed on Bien Español here in the States, where we saw a large amount of viewers watching us in Spanish before or after soccer games and find us. And so we found first, second generation Mexican Americans that weren't aware of MLW, but liking MLW because they got to see guys like LA Park, Conan, and a new generation of guys at the time, like the Lucha Brothers, or nowadays they have Eres and Aramis. So they're seeing these guys and it's a piece of the homeland and it's authentic. And we want to build that out. That's a big long-term plan for us, is just build out our presence in Latin America, but also in terms of Spanish language, whether it's streaming rights, linear rights here in the US. That's a very big focus for me. As for the different doors internationally and working with different promotions stateside or abroad, it's funny. I was talking to one of our guys, I think it was Calvin Tank, and I said, really unique environment we have here this weekend. This was on Saturday night. I said, 10 feet over there, that's the booker of IWA Puerto Rico, Savio Vega. And 10 feet over there, we got the booker for AAA, Conan. And 5 feet over there, catering, you have the booker for All Japan in Tajiri. Just to have them a few feet away from you, have access to open doors and do different things and trade talent. That's very special. And for our talent, I think that makes us so unique, is that you have those doors open. We want our talent to get their reps in. We want them to have that experience. And we'd love to air those matches. We want to put on TV a match from Japan, a match from Puerto Rico, matches from Mexico. It's such a different atmosphere. It's so exciting to me. So we want to do more of that. And we would love to have their talent. We're talking right now with different offices about bringing their talent in and doing some international title matches. So there'll be more on that, I think, actually on Fightland this week. When you tune in, the news segment might break some news on that. As for domestic partnerships and collaborations, that's where it gets a little tricky because we've had talks, and people probably are aware, we talked with WWE earlier this year, and you have these conversations, you try to see how it would work, and the biggest concern you have, at least for me, is you're kind of inviting tortious interference and allowing it to happen if you go down that road. And if you don't feel like you're getting enough in return to even take that risk, what are you doing? What's the strategy there? So it can be very complicated, whether it's, WWE or another company. It can be risky because often the talent, then when they come through, you're not going to now be able to control the creative for it. And these guys that you spent a lot of time building up are now really not in your system. And now if they're main event stars in MLW, but they go over there for a cameo and they're not treated like top guys, now your fans, you're doing a disservice to them and your fans that have invested in them in their journey. So it's a really delicate thing, and every conversation with every company is different. So it's a bit of a dance, and sometimes it is the forbidden dance.
So there you have it. Court Bauer's thoughts on pretty much everything. So first, let's break that down. Returning to Mexico. Court and MLW do have intentions to return to Mexico anytime as soon as the end of this year, but more likely into 2022. So that is great for fans in Mexico that they're going to have MLW coming back. That also means a great opportunity for them to partner with Lucha promotions, whether that be AAA or possibly other promotions, to showcase Lucha Libre talent. And, as far as his response to working with other promotions, we talked about it just earlier as far as, whenever you see promotions working together and exchanging of talent, what is that ROI? And I thought Court really talked about that beautifully. What is the return on investment whenever you are working with another promotion? And we've seen this happen in multiple ways, especially with AEW, where the partnership with New Japan has made sense because then you have New Japan talent on U.S. television and you're expanding that fan base. But on the same token, you see what happened with their relationship with Impact, and it felt like Impact was, the little brother in all of this. And they didn't get quite nearly the talent exchange that, opportunities to have their talent on Impact or AEW television that they should have had, I think, as far as the exchange, especially since they had Kenny Omega as their world champion for several months. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on Court's, comments on, the relationship with, Mexico and possibly returning, but also throughout that press conference really talked about Lucha Libre being a focal point of MLW. He also talked about MLW's kind of next immediate plans are to expand into Latin America and have more luchadors, but also more international talent. He did talk about the fact that with MLW, just backstage at Fightland, he had, Savio Vega and Tajiri, as, international bookers. You have, people who work all throughout the United States as well. You have just a variety of people in different roles all together at a hub of MLW. So his also utilization of a Forbidden Door looks somewhat different, but also seems to work really well with MLW.
So I was super excited by him stating outright that his intention is to move into Latin America, to have a bigger presence there. Like, we've heard rumors about other promotions trying. We also see other promotions that are making moves in North America, but not in Mexico or South America, which, seeing as wrestling as a culture down there, that just seems backward to me. So, but at the same time, I'm glad that it's an MLW that's doing it, because they seem to have a real awareness of what lucha looks like and how important it is, and seem to treat it well when they put it in their product. So that was my big takeaway, was his respect on that. And then to your point, he also seemed to have a very astute awareness of return on investment for both sides. Like, which again puts us back. We were just talking in a previous segment about the difference that having the Good Brothers in an American promotion versus going to Mexico would have, and that's that return on investment too. So yeah, that's where I was at with it. I don't know if Dusty got a chance to listen to that, but if you have any thoughts based on what we've said, Dusty, give us a little bit.
I haven't had a chance to listen, but I do have some thoughts. Way back in the day when tape trading was a thing, I would look for names that I recognized with wrestling programs. I'd be like, oh, there's Rey Mysterio in Japan. I want that. And that's easy to do. And MLW have done such a fantastic job of gathering names globally that anywhere they go, there's names people would recognize and be like, oh, I want to see that. I know who Aries is. I know who, Conan is. I know, whoever. And so I feel like their ability to reach an international audience in that way is almost unparalleled, because they have so many international wrestlers, and just that name brand recognition can bring so many eyes on the talent and on the show compared to, I think that's the biggest stumbling block for lucha and Japanese wrestling to a lot of American fans, is that there's nobody they know when they first start to watch it. And so to have people, that even if you don't know the name, you recognize the style. People in Mexico will always recognize lucha style. Japanese people will always recognize Japanese style. And so on. So to have the kind of the British style, the Japanese strong style, the lucha, the American style, to have it all come in, and they've even got some wrestling, and they're, they've got the whole thing. And the ability to tie that in and make an international product, I think, is going to make them very special. Yeah. And there's something for everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, which hasn't really been done before. And I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a really unique, but also a way to kind of leverage your strengths. And again, Court even talked about his strengths and background in working with AAA, working with WWE, and how he leverages that in the way that he formats and, structures MLW and how, but also being very aware, of the landscape of wrestling now has changed and evolved and what they're trying to do to be different, from that. And it's anywhere from the way that they are working and doing more outreach to the media to new segments that they included tonight, on Fightland with Embedded, a new format of, having more conversation around wrestling in the show, and then also just again who they're looking at and signing, and again that emphasis on lucha talent and appreciation. And we didn't get a whole lot of information as far as Lucha Underground. I'm not going to say Lucha Underground, Azteca Underground. We don't really know that much more about how long-term and big picture it's being incorporated outside of what we see right now. But even that, his experience being a consultant for Lucha Underground, was likely one of the reasons why we have Azteca Underground right now in the format that we see in MLW. So, yeah. I think it's really intriguing, but also something that's very refreshing. And for, again, as we have this focus on Lucha Libre, not only on the show, but as part of luchacentral.com, and really trying, we know how challenging it is to bring it to a U.S. audience, and also in turn have a Latin American audience turn into a U.S. product. MLW is trying to do both, and seems to have long-term plans to do a lot of that crossover.
They do have a lot of plans. I think they're still being cagey with Azteca Underground because they can't go into Mexico full force right now, among other reasons. But I think that one major stopping point alone is enough to be kind of cagey with your details, because you can have Court Bauer clearly has a big vision, but if he can't execute on what his vision is, he has to figure out how he's going to revise that, and putting out details before that has happened is not necessarily the best move. So
fair enough. So real quick, again, Fightland Thursday on Vice TV at 10 p.m. It's happening actually as we are recording this. So.
It is lighting up social media right now. Lighting it, there are clips everywhere. Well, you guys are talking. I've been watching the Twitters, and that's all they're talking about right now, especially that 4-man match with Aries and Aramis in it. They're just going crazy on it.
Yes, yeah. So for Fightland, there are 2 matches being seen or gonna air as part of Fightland. Of course, you have the title versus title match, World Heavyweight Champion Jacob Batu versus National Openweight Champion Alex Hammerstone. And the 4-way for the middleweight championship, Myron Reed versus Tajiri versus Addis versus Adamis. Now, because we know the results of this, we are going to spoil it, but even though you're going to be listening to in the future, it's not a spoiler, even though it happened in the past.
It's already happened as of now. They've, the results that we did, the last result that I just saw it, so we are more than free.
So, with that, we do have a new world middleweight champion in Tajiri, which I definitely would think is a bit of a surprise, but in some ways it's not, because, the amount of experience he has is probably more combined, than the competitors in that ring. And he's probably wrestled in more countries, and had more matches than all the competitors combined in that match. So it isn't that surprising. But Brendan, you had some interesting, observations about this match.
Well, so, first off, it is my pick of the 2 matches we got. Hammerstone and Fatu is really good for what it is, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. But as a Lucha fan, I got a lot of what I wanted out of this match. Myron Reed can work Lucha, Aries and Aramis did obviously work Lucha, and we're going to talk more about this, but Tajiri has worked famously with luchadors. So, you got a lot of what you're looking for out of this. They separated a lot and did things. To me, the things that stood out were the times where Aries and Aramis were in the ring together. They, have a great chemistry, which is probably because they've worked together in a number of companies and came up in the same promotions in Mexico together. And they very much are giving me the vibes, and seeing them in the ring made me realize this. Seeing them in the ring with Tajiri made me realize they're giving very much Super Crazy Tajiri vibes. So they are they're on pace to do some really big things. We will talk more about that later in the show. Spoilers, but just in general, the way that they work together, the smoothness and the styles, the way they work, and even the visual imagery, I just really appreciate the two of them together in a kind of Super Crazy Tajiri way. So if you guys are fans of that, then definitely check this match out.
Well, with that, we are going to then just share that, of course, Alexander Hammerstone did win the title versus title match, and he is now your new MLW World Champion. A big congratulations to him. This is something that obviously has been in the works for quite some time. It seemed like the pandemic ended up altering plans, but it seems like this was, what was meant to be. So a big congratulations to him, to MLW, for the results of Fightland. Mm-hmm. And we still have more content that we're going to get from Fusion Alpha over the next few weeks. So make sure you stay tuned to the Lucha Central Weekly podcast each and every week to get your MLW news. But with that, we're going to move forward with This Week in Lucha Libre History with Dusty.
Oh, I didn't realize it was like that. Cool.
I wasn't going to I was going to let Dusty, he could mention it, but yeah, surprise, we're here. Do we have Dusty?
Yes, sorry, my mute button was on. Afraid my cats would make noise. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for this day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre. And it's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. And we kind of hinted towards it. This week, we chose the match of the day for October the 8th, which was Super Crazy versus Tajiri at the first ever IWA Junior Heavyweight Championship Tournament on May 21st, 1999. The IWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship was a title for wrestlers that weighed 225 pounds or under, and it was defended in the International Wrestling Association in Puerto Rico. Super Crazy and Tajiri, they'd been tearing it up all over the planet together at this point, including some really legendary matches in ECW, and 1999 was just their year. Their fluid dynamics and their familiarity with each other led to some fantastic matches, some familiar spots. But first we'll get to the tournament. The competitors in this tournament were stacked. The 1999 tournament saw Super Crazy, Tajiri, Christopher Daniels, Mr. Aguila, Black Scorpion, Danny Boy, Pablo Marquez, Pepe Prado, Reckless Youth, Taka Michinoku, Alexander Otsuka, The Great Sasuke, Tiger Mask 4, and on loan from WWF in the middle of the feud with the Brood, Jeff Hardy, who lost in the first round to Super Crazy.
As he should.
Yeah. That's awesome. 1999, Jeff Hardy losing to Super Crazy was wild. That, they mentioned it on commentary during the match. It was a big deal. And this week's choice, the match we chose, was the semifinals of the tournament. After Super Crazy had beaten Jeff Hardy and Tajiri had beaten Black Scorpion, they were both given a bye from the first round into the semifinals. This match was awesome. It would see Tajiri beat Super Crazy. They hit a lot of their signature spots, including the synchronized kip up that I always enjoyed. Before Tajiri, he won this match, he would lose the tournament to eventual winner Mr. Aguila in the finals. You may know Mr. Aguila as Esa Rios, or maybe Papi Chulo. I mean, he's the guy. He's got a long lucha pedigree. Go ahead, Brendan.
I gotta correct you on this because this is a Mass Republic sponsored show. That is Legends of Lucha Libre superstar, Mr. Aguila.
Oh.
Yeah. There you go. And if that doesn't give you the sign, I mean, he absolutely has a long lucha pedigree. He's been a AAA heavyweight champion. He was the CMLL Trios champion, the Mexican Nationals Trio champion. He was part of the winning team from Mexico in the 2004 TNA America's X Cup tournament. He's a very important guy, and yeah, it was just cool. A lot of lucha action in this match. Cool to see a lot of lucha action in Puerto Rico for a change. What did you think of this match, Brendan?
Well, as the listeners probably gathered, I was focusing in a lot more on the magic of the Tajiri Super Crazy feud. Mm-hmm. As a Super Crazy fan in particular, this was something that I was happy to look back on. You mentioned 1999 was their year, but like that doesn't do it justice. Like the first half of the year, they were breaking out in ECW. Like they were. When we talk about legendary lucha libre matches happening in ECW, a lot of people immediately go to Rey Mysterio and Psicosis, but this was the next wave of that they were right in that wave, and they didn't let down. I think they actually might have stepped up the bar a little bit, making it really hard to do extreme lucha libre in ECW for the next wave of guys who,
they're incredible together. And next wave, like you mentioned, if you haven't seen it, you really need to check it out. The stuff they did, like, still, how would you follow it? Like, it's just incredible. It feels as fresh now as it did 22 years ago.
And then they revisited that again when they went to WWE. So if you are not inside the United States and you can use the app the proper way, you can just go on the app and search up all their matches, or I'm sure you can still find them with a little more work. But all three iterations, like them in the Indies, them in ECW, them in WWE, all captures magic. They always bring something new. They recently got rebooked in an indie promotion somewhere, and I watched it, and sometimes you don't want to see aging legends reliving their seminal feuds, but they still seem to bring new magic to it, and that was what this match did for me, is it brought back that feeling of like, just how incredible it was to live through this feud coming up and going around. And that's part of, like, that's probably why in my mind the Aries and Aramis people looked more like that, because I've been watching that. So in fairness, other people are going to probably look at it and go, I don't see anything like that. And you're right also. Miranda, where were your thoughts on this one?
I mean, this was definitely one of my favorite matches of the days, or just matches that we've seen. And I think it's for multiple reasons, but one, as far as the match, as far as the chemistry is really, really strong between the two, where at moments you could tell like they were reading each other's minds. I think when they both kind of just popped right back up after, going through a sequence together in sync was magic. And the ability where they could be in a moment and just doing a headlock and then jump right into kind of a fast-paced sequence and then slow it down again, Super Crazy getting out of the ring to slow, like, they really had a pace that made you just want to watch. They could go fast and then take a moment, and everyone can kind of recollect, their thoughts, and then they could go right back into it. And I mean, the timing of a lot of things in their match was really, really well done for my taste. And Tajiri especially is so hard hitting in his moves. I remember seeing that drop kick right into the middle of Super Crazy's knees, and how it just took him down. And then Super Crazy kind of dragged himself by his arms, like he couldn't use his legs because they, looked like they were just, he couldn't even use them, like he couldn't even stand up on them or anything. So I think that also that attention to detail, but also the quickness of moves, the preciseness of moves was just, like a clinic. And you're right, like this match, and I think their feud in general just elevated cruiserweight level feuds to a whole new level. And I think that this match in particular is one that you watch, and I think people would just study for a variety of reasons, whether it's moves, whether it's psychology, whether it's, just interaction with opponent, the crowd reaction was very strong, consistent throughout the entire match. So, I just really liked this match. It kept my attention the entire time. It really was so well paced and a lot of, strong moves that they both really sold beautifully. And I don't even know how much they had to sell because a lot of those look painful.
I can tell you from being around Super Crazy a lot that, it's not hard to sell for him. He's snug, I believe is the term they use.
And almost to think, so this match happened, now 22 years ago, if my math is right. And now Tajiri is the MLW middleweight champion, so it's almost, and as you said too, Brendan, they were recently in a match and this was them 20 years ago and they're still doing it.
Yeah, and you're still getting something new and quality out of it. Like, you may not be getting all of the suicide dives anymore, but you don't find yourself missing that because they're doing new stuff and that chemistry is still there, and that's important.
So definitely a great match to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was this week in Lucha Libre history. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com to catch this day in Lucha Libre history. But wait, there's more. Yes, so much more. Brendan, can you tell our listeners what else they can find on luchacentral.com?
All right. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it really is time to do it. LuchaCentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of this, it's still free. It's always going to be free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
There you go. Now we got, I wouldn't say some quick hits because some of these are going to take longer than others, but we got a whole lot of other promotions to cover in the second half of the show. First off, this is going to be a fairly quick hit. NWA Power this week had the very first ever Lucha Scramble match. This was a tag team match where La Rebellion defended their belts against the Ill Begotten and Marshall Rocket and Slice Boogie. So, that happened on Power. We got to see La Rebellion, for the first time in quite some time, I believe since they've won the NWA Tag Team Championship. So, it's great that they're continuing to bring that Lucha Libre presence, on NWA television to the point where we had our first Lucha Scramble match. So, if you're interested in watching that, make sure to check out NWA Power. I believe it is on Fight TV. So you can get access to that episode, and watch La Rebellion defend their belts. Also, a shout out to Slice Boogie, on there too. He's had a busy week, with MLW, and so the fact that, he was able to be in this match too, against two other tag teams is a pretty big accomplishment. So shout out to him, and congratulations once again to your still NWA Tag Team Champions, La Rebellion.
Yeah, Slice is just like Danny. He's hustling and working everywhere, and he made the most of this downtime. Sorry, I just needed to throw my appreciation in there.
Absolutely right. Period. Up next, Brendan, speaking of, you have some ROH updates.
Indeed. So I'm going to start with TV. On TV, we had two things that are kind of lucha-centric. Roxy came out in the middle to basically address, it's a customary thing. New champions tend to come out in the middle of the ring and state their purpose. And Roxy seemed very gracious and seemed very much to set up a notion that she is going to be a fighting kind of more, shall we say, baby face, to use an industry term, champion. She's definitely said something to the effect of wanting to take on all contenders, which brought out pretty much the entire women's roster. They all challenged her, and that resulted in we're going to have a series of matches. We're going to have 2 3-woman matches. And the winner of each of those is going to go to the go-home show before now I want to make sure I have the right one, because Ring of Honor has very similarly named pay-per-views.
That is true.
Where did we, during to face each other at Final Battle. So the go-home show to Final Battle will have the winner of the 2 3-women matches, and then the winner of that match will face Roxy at Final Battle. So the people that were out there were like the Allure, Miranda Morales, who obviously on this show we want to see more of those 2 wrestle, and a few of the others. Basically, like I said, the whole roster. They haven't given us the 6-woman breakdown or the 6 women's individual matches yet, so I'll be covering that more. Then they went to a commercial, and they came back from a commercial, and they showed us highlights of Roxy leaving the ring, and Miranda Alizé decided it wasn't enough to have just come out and make her public claim to the title. She knocked Roxy down on the ramp and gave her the boots. So we're going to hopefully see more of that program. We also got Quinn McKay to come out and make the save, which makes me think we're going to see Miranda Alizé and Quinn McKay in upcoming weeks on television as well. So sounds like we're going to have lots of lucha representation in the women's division on TV in the near future.
I do want to add something real quick too, as far as an interesting backstage segment that happened, that is also somewhat lucha-centric. Miranda Alizé was cutting a promo in the back after she attacked Roxy, and Amy Rose came and approached her about possibly having some business together. Amy Rose, the former manager of La Facción Ingobernable, and so she definitely knows business. She definitely knows, how to manage people, and she is currently the manager for Max the Impaler. So if she is now taking her managerial skills to different heights, we could see that as far as, you talked about the run-in from Quinn McKay to help Roxy. Maybe that's where Miranda Alizé gets some help with, either Amy Rose or Max the Impaler.
I can definitely foresee a possibility of a tag team match with those 4 women, with Max and Miranda on one side and Roxy and Quinn McKay on the other side. So you are absolutely right. Amy Rose, for those of you who weren't keeping score, was also an LFI manager, and so very much when she was there, they had all the gold. So in addition to being very lucha-centric and of Hispanic descent, which is important to ROH right now, I'll go over that in a second. She's also very successful, so there could be a way to kind of elevate Miranda Alizé into that main event picture on a more consistent basis, which I'm not upset with either. That was on the YouTube channel, which is why I didn't make it into my notes, because I only watched the show, so thank you for helping me out with that.
That's why we divide and conquer. I just watch all the free stuff, so there you go. I got you. When in doubt, Miranda watches all the stuff that does not cost money. All Sorry about that.
No. The main event we did have, it is Lucha adjacent. It is not exceptionally Lucha content, but we did have Danhausen produced a 4-man team to go against Violence Unlimited, and he recruited Demonic Flamita on his side. So that is pretty much the only Lucha content on that side. The other side, Violence Unlimited, we've talked about. You've got Brody King, who's a Lucha Santino Brothers graduate. Homicide, Tony Deppen, who has actually had one of the most entertaining Lucha matches I've seen during the lockdown era. So, you get your Lucha content when Flamita is in the ring with any of those guys. So you do get some good stuff. It's a fun match. But obviously you're going to have your mileage vary. So for the record, the team that Danhausen put together was Danhausen, Flamita, Sledge, and PCO against Violence Unlimited of Brody King, Homicide, Tony Deppen, and Chris Dickinson. But that was TV. We're gonna go, as I alluded to, ROH is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and they have a website which has videos of some of their hand-selected and curated moments. They start off the page with Rush versus Bandito, and they call this right out. Bandito winning this made him only the second Mexican ever to hold the ROH championship, and he's the first masked luchador to hold the ROH championship. Plus, this is just a banger of a match. Any fans of either of these guys is not let down by this match at all. Then they had Roxy winning the title against Miranda Alizé. We've already talked about that at length on this show. It's still worth a watch. Now you can get it for free on the webpage. Then they featured Matt Taven winning the ROH championship at their Madison Square Garden show. ROH lists Taven as being of Puerto Rican descent, which is why they have tied him in. A factoid that neither Miranda or I knew until this month.
No, so now I keep my eyes on you, Matt Taven. You're part of the group.
Yeah.
Bienvenidos, Not like you just became Puerto Rican, not like that either. But also was not aware of this. And including most of the Instagram/YouTube comments I read as well. We're not crazy. I just think it was and I went on his Instagram, barely any Puerto Rican flags. He really made it hard. Barely any Puerto Rican flags. Come on.
Based on my perceptions of Puerto Ricans on social media, that just tells me that
that's very rare. I do know some Puerto Ricans who have no flags, but that also, but I'm like, what are you doing? Sometimes I feel compelled to give them a flag just to be like, do you need one? Do you have one? Are you okay?
They also featured Dragon Lee winning the IWGP Championship also at that Madison Square Garden show. Fantastic match. And then at the end we have Mandy Leon, just a compilation of all of her work on ROH over the years. Again, they list her. I totally did not catch this. I always thought, based on her presentation, her general attitude, that she was Italian American, but no, she is of Cuban and Puerto Rican descent, is what ROH says. So there we are. They're very well represented with matches. They have a huge graphic which contains more wrestlers. Hispanic Heritage Month at ROH. Just go to ROH.com and they've got a big banner to it that'll lead you right there. It's well worth the time to check out some of these matches.
Brendan, up next, we have some big CMLL news regarding the Grand Prix.
Well, so by the time you're hearing this, the Grand Prix will have started. They're doing the tapings on Friday. As of right now, I'm still able to watch it. It looked like they let me buy a ticket, unlike the anniversary. Anyway, I'm just gonna, so I was able to get, it's on the Ticketmaster site. Cubs Fan has links, or you can send me a direct message if you want to try and catch it. But again, there's no instant replay on that format, so you're probably going to have to rely on the YouTube channel, which will have results shortly. Also, though, they are putting up tickets for the Day of the Dead show, which is going to be a pay-per-view as well. And as we've established on this show, I'm a huge fan of it. Dusty's a huge fan of it. Miranda is a fan of it. So we're going to be talking about the Day of the Dead show. So, if you want to see it live, the tickets are available now, or you can just wait until we talk about it, because it's going to be awesome. But that's all. I'm going to cut short on the results. CMLL is putting up a ton of shows as always. We will be covering the Grand Prix, including Avispa Dorada's return, because I got to talk about her as well. But we will focus on those results next week.
Yeah. That is why you got to stay tuned to the Lucha Central Weekly podcast each and every week for all of your Lucha Libre news. So make sure you stay tuned. Up next, we have NXT, and trust us, we were surprised as you are when we realized they were this far on the rundown. But it's just the way that the cookie crumbles, so much content. And we had fairly limited Lucha Libre content, at least this week, and I preface that with this week because, some of the results from the draft, as we talked about earlier, one that we didn't mention that does have an impact on Lucha Libre or some of the content we see on NXT is Hit Row was drafted to SmackDown, which we had talked about on the show as far as what would happen with their feud with Legado de Fantasma if Hit Row was drafted. Now we kind of know what's going to happen. During this week's NXT, Legado de Fantasma called out Hit Row. And specifically Santos Escobar challenged Isaiah Swerve Scott for the North American championship. Isaiah Swerve Scott did accept. So we're gonna have this, and who knows, with Hit Row moving up to SmackDown, it is now very likely that Santos Escobar could win the NXT North American championship, which is great. But on the downside, we don't quite see the really big match between Hit Row and Legado de Fantasma that we had really been hoping for months. So, it's great news for Hit Row. I know there was a lot of mixed reactions on Hit Row being drafted, but that is, the intention of NXT is to develop talent to bring them up. On the downside, again, that does leave now this pretty big storyline hole of Legado de Fantasma. That feud between them and Hit Row has really been flourishing for months now, to the point where, Legado added Elektra Lopez to counterbalance Fab B. Now that goes away, what does that mean for Legado de Fantasma? Is there going to be another storyline for them? Now, again, if Santos Escobar wins the North American Championship, that's going to be a huge feather in his cap, and that's going to be something that the entire faction can ride that wave on. Mm-hmm. But it does leave a big, what is next for the faction. So we're going to be covering that match next week. It could be possibly one of the last times we see them in a ring together for quite some time. So I have a feeling they're going to make this match really one of the highlights of the entire show.
We've mentioned it before, but it's worth mentioning again. This is a AAA and Lucha Underground rematch. They did have different names at the time.
Yeah.
But this is, and it's been a banger of a match in every iteration. I also personally want to congratulate Swerve. This has been well known to people who know him personally. This is a goal of his to get to the WWE main roster. Mm-hmm. So congratulations, man. I know you worked hard to get there, and I really hope you get all the success you deserve in the WWE.
Yeah, Hit Row seems like a really well-built faction for SmackDown. They have personality, they have attitude. Again, the mixed bag has been the varying levels of wrestling experience and ability within the faction. You have, part of your faction that's pretty, well established as wrestlers. The other half is, more inexperienced. But together, they create a very must-watch team. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at, your two big shows of Raw and SmackDown, it is the entertainment factor that carries people through. So, again, I am in a much more selfish area where we're not going to get this big blow up or big blowout match between Legato and Hit Row that I've been really wanting. That dream fantasy of a War Games match will not happen. But I do think that this is a great example of bringing up some entertaining talent from NXT, to a brand that seems to fit them very well.
They're a great fit, and I think they will do very big things there.
And then also we did have Frankie Monet on our TV screens again. We had, and this came out in a very interesting way. Cora Jade came out for her NXT debut. She was originally supposed to face Virginia Ferry. However, Frankie Monet pulls up and ends up just taking Ferry out, and, Robert Stone is there as well. But pretty much the change happens where Frankie says, no, Cora, I am your competitor. So, that changes, and we have Frankie Monet versus Cora Jade. For the most part, again, we see the aggressiveness of Frankie Monet, really taking advantage of, the ring space and really keeping Cora Jade to a corner. And, eventually she gets a little cocky towards the end, where she is going for her finisher, which I am not sure they call it Glam Slam in NXT, I believe. And she's going for that. However, Cora Jade is able to, roll through that and ends up with a roll-up win over Frankie Monet. So now we have another loss for Frankie Monet after her defeat, of Raquel Gonzalez, or being defeated by Raquel Gonzalez last week. Now, she gets a quick one out, from Cora Jade, which is big for Cora. She is only 20 years old, the youngest person on the NXT roster. But Frankie Monet, does not lose. And so who knows if this is only going to get her angrier. Speaking of Raquel Gonzalez, we did see her on this week's episode of NXT. She was out for an interview and called out Mandy Rose. Her and her group came out, and eventually, ended up attacking Raquel Gonzalez. She got some backup from the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions in Io Shirai and Zoe Stark. So it looks like we may see a trios match happen, sometime in the near future. And I love the idea of the champions teaming up. That is a strong team to face. And so I think that would be a really great match to see. But Raquel Gonzalez, Zoe Stark, and Io Shirai all on the same team? Shut up and take my money.
Yeah, take my money. I will go to Florida and watch that match.
Right? That is, a noteworthy match. So looks like we'll get that sometime in the near future. And a final note, we did get confirmation this week that we are going to get Halloween Havoc once again. It will be the October 27th edition. The October 26th edition of NXT will be Halloween Havoc. No word yet on any changes to the set. No host, so already it's not going to be as good as last year's, but, I could be convinced otherwise. However,
just wait until you hear something. They just haven't announced anything yet.
Yeah.
Shotzi is on socials right now, pushing Halloween like mad, so you never know. They may get the fever and bring her back anyway, so.
Yeah, that's what they should do.
That's what they should do. Halloween Havoc was one of the best NXT events and one of the best WWE events of all of 2020. Period. I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill if anybody wants to fight me on it.
I ain't fighting you on that one.
But anyways, for any of those Halloween Havoc fans, just know we are going to get Halloween Havoc NXT on Tuesday, October 26th. And don't forget, you can get your NXT results on luchacentral.com. So if you missed it, you can check it out there, or just listen to this show each and every week. Up next, we have AAA preview of Heroes Immortales this weekend.
Yeah, like Miranda said, Heroes Immortales this weekend, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time. They're going to do some weird thing where some of the matches are going to be taped at the beginning and some are going to air live. I don't know how all that works, but I have a feeling if you look around the Lucha blog, wherever, I don't know, but you might find it out there. Just look around. But yeah, it'll be out there to view. We'll run down the card for you real quick, refresh your memory. First match on the card, allegedly, maybe it'll be the opening match. They say it is Lucha Bros, Phoenix and Pentagon. They're the tag team champions versus Los Jinetes del Are. There we go. The Io del Vikingo, Laredo Kid. That's a tag team title match. That's very exciting. Looking forward to that. That's probably going to be the match of the night. Second match on the card, Los Psycho Circus, Psycho Clown, Monster Clown, and Murder Clown versus La Empresa, Puma King, Sam Adonis, DMT Azul. Puma King's got some really cool new masks based on Peter Criss from Kiss that he's been showing off on Facebook.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, it is the coolest mask. Like, I gotta have one. It is, yeah, it's amazing. Super cool. Best mask I've seen in a long time, actually. So, very high recommendation for me. Third match on the card, another trios match. El Poder del Norte, Tito Santana, Carta Brava Jr., and Mocha Cota Jr. versus Nuevo Generacion Dinamita.
Oh, fire!
Yeah,
fire!
Finally we get this match. And this has been super hyped. People are excited for this. This will be the first time that it doesn't kind of break down immediately. They had one match, but it wasn't really a match. Super excited for this.
I just have to throw out this amazing stat. Poder del Norte, until like 2 weeks, a month ago now probably, was undefeated on an undefeated streak for multiple years.
Whoa.
Yeah, literal years, yeah. As a Mr. Iguana fan, yeah, that hurt me. Because they always beat him. But
that's true.
Yeah. Wait, next match on the card is a 9-person Copa Antonio Pena match that sees Pimpinella Escarlata versus Mamba, Aerostar, Sexy Star 2, Dave the Clown, Kira, Viano 3 Jr., Aries, and Argenis. And it's interesting, these kind of intergender Copas aren't super common, so it's a really cool way to, if you're into intergender wrestling, this is a super cool match. Some people, it's not their thing, but I like the idea that the Exoticos, the ladies, the men, they're all in it like it's anybody could win. I could like that.
And a clown.
And a clown. A clown named Dave.
Yeah.
From Mexico. A clown named Dave from Mexico.
Dave, right. always get a giggle. And then they introduce him like so seriously, like, Dave the clown. I'm just like,
yeah, he's a lot of fun. Our fifth match on the card is another trios match. This will probably be where we see our beloved Cookie Sheets when Pagano, Chessman, and Lady Shawnee go up against Abismo Negro Jr., Latigo, and Cheek Tormenta. Like, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
I mean, like, very cool. Like I say, most likely to see the Cookie Sheets. Number 6 is Los Mercenarios, La Hydra, Rey Scorpion, and Taurus. They're the trios champions, and they're in a title match against Octagon Jr., Mystices Jr., and Artemis. And like, that could easily be the show stealer too. Big, exciting match there. And our final match is another trios match. Nino Hamburguesa, Fabi Apache, and Mr. Iguana versus La Parca Negra, El Hijo del Tarantes, wrestling, not officiating, and Superfly. So
wow, Superfly too.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've got some bad news for you, Dusty.
Oh.
Mr. Iguana's probably gonna wind up.
When you see the talent stacking up, it's like
But it is a main event at a major pay-per-view or pay-per-view equivalent for Mr. Iguana, so that's very cool.
Yeah. And it's always exciting to see him. And we'll report all the results and all the action next week. I'm excited to see it this weekend. And if you need the news faster than that, check out luchacentral.com. He's going to have all the news and reviews and everything up there. And
Pep's usually at those events, so we should get it up to the minute.
Oh, that's true. I forgot. Pep usually goes, and so it's always exciting to get his first-hand information there. And next up, we've got Miranda. She's got some Impact Wrestling.
Yes, just a few little tidbits for you. A man that we've talked about several times throughout tonight's show, Laredo Kid, was on Before the Impact facing the Drama King Matthew Reholt. And this match was fairly surprisingly good. And I guess I don't mean that in a way that I didn't expect the competitors themselves to be good, but I haven't seen Matthew Reholt, Rehwoldt, wrestle in quite some time, and I was curious as to how, the chemistry and dynamic would be in this match, but it worked out very well. An interesting note that the commentators played up the comparisons between Laredo Kid and Rey Mysterio, as far as, Rey Mysterio being one of the world's most famous luchadors and the potential that Laredo Kid has, and at first I just thought it was kind of a cheap way of drawing the comparison, but there's some logic to it as far as Laredo Kid's, growing popularity in the United States, his visibility, his moveset. I think, just understanding that blend of lucha and American wrestling, he gets that better than a lot of other luchadors. And so with that kind of mulling in my head, I understood the comparison a little bit better. But in the match itself, you had Laredo Kid with some big moves. He had a suicide dive through the middle rope, but the Drama King caught him and turned that into a neck breaker. So I think that was one of the first instances in this match where I could see how smart Reholt is in, being able to pick his moves. Later on in the match, Laredo Kid would come back with a drop kick from the top rope. And then he landed a springboard moonsault off the middle rope. And then he had not only one, but two twisting moonsaults from the, I believe the second rope. I believe the top rope at the time, but still landing those back to back, and the crowd loved it. They said one more time when he landed that second one. He went up to the top rope for some kind of corkscrew moonsault, but missed, and that's when Matthew Reholt was able to kind of capitalize and take advantage and take the charge in the match. But then they end up at the top rope, and Laredo Kid hits Matthew with a huge slap to the chest, so loud that you can hear it echo through the arena. They battle over the top rope. Laredo Kid kind of teased the Spanish Fly, but then he gets knocked off the top rope. He runs back up and ends up landing the Spanish Fly for the win. So another win for Laredo Kid on Before the Impact. It is obvious that his chemistry with the Impact roster is gelling fairly well. So even though he lost his match last week to be part of that X Division title match, it still shows in his wins that Impact is putting some level of importance on him on the roster. As far as this week on Impact, 2 matches you'll want to keep an eye out for. We did have a qualifier match for the X Division Championship match, as they call it, the X Division Tournament match, even though it's very similar to the format that Brendan had brought up for Ring of Honor. I believe you're going to have 3 different triple threat matches, and the winners of those matches will then head to a finals match with all the winners and so on and so forth. So, last week you had, I'm trying to even remember who won last week's match. I know Laredo Kid was in that match, but he didn't win. And I apologize, I honestly forgot who won last week's qualifier match. However, this week in the qualifier match, we had Steve Macklin versus Petey Williams versus Black Taurus. And in this match, Steve Macklin won. So this was a little bit of a surprise, but not really when you think about, Steve Macklin's run on the roster. That actually now reminds me that Steve Macklin will now be facing Trey Miguel, who won last week's match. So I believe we're going to have one more qualifier match to determine the third participant in this X Division title match. We also had a tag match between Rich Swann and Willie Mack versus Zicky Dice and Manny Lemons, in which Rich Swann and Willie Mack won. So the tag team of Willie Mack and Rich Swann continue. What we know as far as long term for them, not entirely sure, but this match is likely more of a comedy match, which Impact does actually very, very well. So if you're looking for a good laugh and some good moves, this tag match is one to watch. But also a pretty big note as well, that Mercedes Martinez made her debut on Impact on this week's episode of Impact, which to me was a little surprising because I didn't expect to see her until the Knockouts Knockdown event that's happening on October 9th, this Saturday. But we did have her in I believe it was a 3-way tag match. We had her teaming up with Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans versus, I believe, Lady Frost, Kimberly, and who's the other one? Lauren. Oh, I just forgot her name. But anyways, Mercedes Martinez made her Impact debut on this week's episode of Impact, and she is going to be featured in the Knockouts tournament, the Knockouts Knockdown tournament this Friday. Brandy Lauren, is the third person that was on that team. Mercedes is actually going to be facing Brandy Lauren in the tournament. It also includes Tasha Steelz versus Jamie Sinadel, Chelsea Green versus Renee Michelle, and Lady Frost versus Rachel Ellering, all first round matches. The winner of this tournament will receive a opportunity for the Knockouts Championship against Deonna Purrazzo. So that's something to keep an eye out for this Saturday. It is exclusively, I believe, on the Impact Plus app, the Knockouts Knockdown event. We're also going to have a Monsters Ball match, Savannah Evans versus Kimberly versus Alicia Edwards versus Jordan Grace. So this all women's event is going to be something to watch out for, to keep your eye out on, and highly, highly entertaining. So, the Knockouts Knockdown Saturday, October 9th on the Impact Plus app. I believe it's also available for anyone who is an Ultimate Insider for, Impact Wrestling. So that is it for this week's edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to visit luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. On top of that, don't forget to check out Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Instagram and Twitter. On Facebook and Instagram, and at LuchaCentralCom on Twitter. So again, Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and LuchaCentralCom on Twitter. Don't forget the YouTube page that has tons and tons of exclusive content you can't find anywhere else, including matches and interviews. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Facebook at facebook.com/DustyMurphy. and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That is the numbers 321. T-shirt guy is all spelled out. I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales. You can find me at the hashtag Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. Don't forget, if you are listening to this show on your favorite podcast streaming platform like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and much more, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe and get a notification every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast drops. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Let us know your thoughts on the show. Let us know about the topics we discuss. If there's anything we should cover more or cover less, let us know. We've already talked about it before, but just one final plug for our interview with Danny in Limelight is also up and available on all of our platforms, including luchacentral.com, thechairshot.com, and all of our podcast streaming platforms. You gotta listen to the interview. It is everything and more. Danny talks so much about his career, how he got to MLW, his upcoming matches in October, including PCW Ultra, New Japan Strong, and, of course, MLW. He talks about his career in entertainment, how he got to wrestling from previously being in the Marines, and much, much more. That interview is now up and available. It is a must-listen interview. You don't want to miss out on that.
An entertainment family, just to give you a weird little teaser.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he was such a cool guy.
Yes. And with that, well, that's the end of this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to check us out. Feel free to reach out to us on social media. Also, as Brendan alluded to, if you are an independent wrestling promoter, fan, or, wrestler, that way we may be able to cover you in a future edition of the Indie Roundup. We do love to promote independent wrestling and wrestlers and promotions that have a focus on lucha libre. So make sure you reach out to us if you think you'd like to be featured in a future Indie Roundup. And with that, that's the end of the show. For Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, my name is Miranda Morales. Thank you all so much, and we will be back with you next week.